Now, after all that, how do you pick a game? Well, there's a lot of people who try this whole strategy of, well, I need to pick a game that hasn't been played before. That is a good strategy, it's just that it's really, really hard. I mean, pretty much, not everything, but pretty much every game has been played before somehow by somebody. Maybe not as a let's play, but as a walkthrough maybe, without commentary, or, in some way, shape, or form. Plus, if you have too obscure games, people aren't really gonna look for it. So, that's not gonna help you in the end. You want to... Basically, the easiest way is to just stick to games that you personally enjoy, that you have some history with. Maybe you played it as a kid, or with your brother back in the day, or with your sister, whatever. Or, I don't know, just some sort of history with it. You can also do blind let's plays, of course. Just make sure it's, that it appeals to you and that you have fun. Because if you have fun, it shows. And if it shows, people are gonna have way more fun to watch you, as opposed as if you would sound like you're bored and like this is the worst time of your life. So, make sure it's something you have fun with. If it is something very overplayed, like let's say Mario 64 or whatever the hell, you can, but don't have to, but you can put a unique spin on it by, for example, you could make a challenge of some sort. Like you could, for example, say, okay, I'm gonna do this, but to make it even more interesting, because, a lot of people have already played it, I'm gonna try to finish every level in, 5 minutes tops, or something like that. Just give it a spin. Give it something that fits your personality. I personally played Pokemon Red, for example, and since it's very overplayed, I gave it a spin by basically calling the Pokemon with their German names, because I grew up with the German game, or the Swiss game anyways, so I would call them by their Swiss/German names, and I would basically almost teach people those names, because they're different from the English ones. And I would explain sometimes why they named the Pokemon the way they did. Something like that. That makes it different from other LPs. Because you kind of gotta give people a reason to watch your stuff. And if people don't know you yet, like if you're not friends with them, the reason for them to watch you should be that it's somehow different from all the other Let's Plays they've seen. That way, even if they've seen a game like 5 times already, they might still watch yours again because you're putting a different spin on it. Okay? Alright, so once you have all of this stuff figured out, you want to think of this, and not anytime sooner. This is when you want to think of, okay, how do I want to Let's Play? How do I want to record my stuff and whatnot? So, now you have technically 2 possibilities. Number 1 would be that you use emulators. However, right here, I'm going to give a warning that emulators are kind of a gray zone in the law. So if you use them, it's going to be completely on you. It's going to be like, use it at your own discretion, use it at your own risk, because it's not quite regulated how people should handle it. Technically, they're illegal unless you make your own copies, like of your games, because that falls under the law, the computer law, with the backup policies that a lot of countries have, which says that you are allowed to make a quote-unquote backup or a copy of your software, and then it would technically be legal, because the emulators themselves are not illegal or illegal, they're just programs. But the ROMs is what the problem is. And if you've read anything of any of those sites that say, oh, you can keep a ROM for 24 hours and then you have to delete it and then you're fine. No, there's no such regulation. That's all just a recommendation at the best. So don't rely on such sources. If anything, do your own research, and hell, go even ask a lawyer, for example, if you're not sure. Because sites often say that, but that doesn't mean anything. And only, please don't use this excuse of, well, but people, like big people, like Jagger Conroy or some Kirby or so, have done this game before, so I should be fine. Please don't use that logic. Because you don't know what exactly they did beforehand. You don't know if they got explicit permission from a company to do a certain game or, whatever. Please don't use that logic. It's all on you, and you can't use others as role models for that or as excuse. And please don't. You're gonna get in trouble sooner or later, at some point, somehow. So please don't. In any case, if you do use emulators, you might want to make sure that you can't tell that it's an emulator, so make sure there's no save state messages in the screen or whatever the hell, because then it's kind of, less problematic, I guess. Also, please don't link people to emulators or anything, and please don't recommend that kind of stuff in general. Let people know that it's at their own risk, because you might get in trouble, depending on which country you live in, anyways. So yeah. In any case, if you do want to use emulators, you can usually emulate NES games, SNES games, Sega, sometimes PS1, obviously Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and sometimes even DS. Okay? If you have a good computer, you might even be able to emulate Nintendo 64 and PS2. However, again, you kind of need quite of a high-end computer if you want to emulate those. And I would recommend, before you announce anything, that you try out the emulator first. First of all, that you're familiar with it and that you can see that there's no lag and whatnot. And also so you know that the game even works, because sometimes the games don't work. So, there you go. Again, this is at your own discretion though. You can't hold anybody but yourself reliable for this if anything ever goes wrong, because it's a gray zone. Much like LPing, by the way, but I'll get to that later. Number 2 of how you can do Let's Plays would be the more legal way, which means you go buy a capture card, such as for example a Dazzle, and you basically plug it in between your console, TV, computer setup, and you record on your screen. Usually people like to have the TV or have the console go to the TV so they can watch the console live in real time on the TV, and the computer just acts as recording device basically. Because if you just look at the computer screen, you might have to deal with lag, and then your gameplay suffers. Capture cards can be anywhere from $30 and up. There are some good deals. It all really depends on what kind of hardware you want, like what kind of quality you want, what kind of company you want it to be from, etc., etc. But you might want to check some gaming forums where you can have little ads, maybe. Or if that's a little too risky, just go to Amazon. They sometimes have some good deals. You don't have to take the newest capture card, really. The older ones work just fine, unless you want super HD dimensions, whatever. But if you're going with mostly old consoles anyway, like the more pixely ones, so to speak, you don't need HD, because just so you can see the pixels in more sharpness? It's not going to do a lot, Here you go. Plus, sometimes stretching the game, or the screen rather, just makes the game look kind of weird. If a game is not rendered or made for HD dimensions, don't make it fake HD. It's not a good thing. Then rather use border graphics, or just leave it black on the sides, But don't stretch it. It looks bad. Believe me, I tried it. Okay. Then the thing with buying a capture card is that you might have to spend a lot of money on it, unlike with emulators, obviously. Again, it depends on what kind of setup you want, but it's up to you. This is the more quote-unquote legal way. Okay. If you want to just try it, want to just try out Let's Playing, you might want to start out with an emulator, and then later on you can still get a Dazzle, you know. Like if you want to just try, like, let's say one short project. And if you are playing hacks, for example, Super Mario World hacks and whatnot, you kind of need an emulator because you can't really play those on consoles without a complicated setup anyway. So in that case, it's kind of okay if people see that's an emulator, because the only way to play those games is on an emulator. So, you know, still, don't do this whole save state rebinding thing too much. It's just kind of obnoxious, but we'll get into that stuff later. Okay, now that you have your setup, you want to go into software. Like, what kind of software to use. Now, depending on what program you use to record your footage with, for example, Camtasia, Fraps, OBS, Cam Studio, VideoPad, etc., you sometimes can use the editor that the program comes with. For example, Camtasia has an editor that comes with it, so you can use that one. Or if you have a Dazzle, it usually comes with Pinnacle Studios. You can use that one if you want, because the thing is that they work pretty well because the footage you recorded is most compatible with, you know, the program it comes with. Makes sense, right? If you record your Dazzle with the program that it comes with, so Pinnacle Studios, it makes sense that it's most compatible with that and not with, let's say, Windows Movie Maker. Makes sense, right? But it's really up to you. It depends on what kind of setup you have, what you're most comfortable with. If you do want to just cut and rearrange your footage, you can even use Windows Movie Maker. However, keep in mind that it might have a very limited quality, which usually is about 360p on YouTube. If you want stuff like image overlays, or if you need 2 or more audio tracks, or if you want face cam somehow, I would recommend NCH Software's VideoPad. It's pretty good, it's pretty inexpensive, and it's awesome. It's like a more advanced Windows Movie Maker program, basically. And if you need more than that, like if you need crazy effects and God knows what else, you might want to go with Adobe Premiere Pro, Sony Vegas, Magix, or anything like that. Just keep in mind that those softwares are very, very expensive. And especially if you don't have any experience with it, you're going to have to play around with it quite a bit. So you might want to do that before you start announcing your Let's Play videos or whatever. Really take the time to get to know a program, no matter how big or small it is. And the other problem you might have is that if you have a, well, quote-unquote low-end computer, you might not even be able to run Adobe Premiere, Sony Vegas, Magix, or whatever. So it really all depends on what kind of specs you have and how much money you want to spend. And what you need. So personally, I use VideoPad. It's very inexpensive. They always have a sale, really. So it's like $30 or so. My videos are usually around 100 megabytes per 20 minutes of footage. And on YouTube, it gives you 480p. The good thing is that if I need to upgrade to HD someday for whatever reason, I still have Air. Windows Movie Maker can't usually do that, for example, so you're kind of stuck with what you have. It's really a good thing if your program has Air and if you can still upgrade your quality if you want to. So I would recommend that. You also want to look into video codecs. I made a tutorial about that once. But basically, to sum it up, if you want decent quality and not too much of a size issue, you should use Xvid codecs or TechSmith, which comes with Camtasia. So, because what I've seen from friends is that they usually have videos of the same length, so about 20 minutes, between 1 and 2 gigabytes, which is about 10 to 20 times the size that I have. And the thing is that that's not bad. It's just that if you want to make or if you want to keep backups of your videos, which is a good idea by the way, just for emergencies, or if you ever need to change channels for whatever reason, or if you need to re-upload something, keep backups. It's a good thing, really. Then size is kind of an issue, you know, because your external HD or your DVDs that you burned or whatever don't have unlimited space, and if you can just put 2 videos on them, that's kind of sucky. And if you, like, depending on your internet speed, you know, if you have 100 megabyte file as opposed to a 1 gigabyte file, it's gonna take way less time, you know? So, again, it's kinda all depending on what you want to go with. But, honestly, there's this misconception that if you have HD videos, you get more views, more subscribers, and all that stuff. Honestly, yeah, you might get more views, well, depending on the game anyways, but it's not, like, super important. I personally don't have HD. Slim Kirby for the longest time didn't have HD. He just has it on his Donkey Kong Country Returns now, and, you know, anything newer. So, I mean, obviously if you have a game like, let's say, Devil May Cry 5 or so, yeah, you might want HD, but if you have anything like PS2 or under, basically, there's barely any point. Because those devices weren't really made for HD anyway, so, you know. As long as the video, like the footage, the visuals, whatever you want to call it, aren't like super fuzzy, you know, so you can't see what the hell's even going on, or you can't even read text, there shouldn't be too much of an issue. That's pretty much what I'm saying.